Hello and welcome. My name is Lena Wynn and I'm a divorce lawyer here in Texas. If you're going through a divorce or are just looking to better understand the legal processes involved, you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about a topic that often comes up in divorce cases. That's spousal support and alimony in Texas. Whether you're the spouse seeking financial support or the one who may be required to pay it, it's essential to understand how spousal support works in Texas and how courts decide who gets it, for how long, and how much. This can be a complicated and often emotional part of the divorce process, but I'm here to break it down and answer your questions in a clear and understandable way. But before we dive in, please note that while this video will provide general information, it's not intended to replace legal advice. Every divorce case is unique, so it's important to consult with a qualified divorce attorney to discuss the specific details of your case. Eligibility for spousal maintenance. Let's start by talking about eligibility for spousal maintenance in Texas. In order to qualify for spousal maintenance, you must meet certain requirements. Let's go over these in detail. In Texas, spousal maintenance is not just automatically granted in every divorce. Unlike child support, which is common in most cases where children are involved, spousal support is only awarded under specific conditions. Here are the general eligibility criteria. The length of marriage. First, the marriage must have lasted at least 10 years. This is important because spousal maintenance is generally only available for those who have been married for a long period of time. However, this rule is not absolute. If there are other factors involved like domestic violence or a disability, you may still be eligible even if the marriage was shorter. Disability. If the spouse seeking maintenance has a disability that prevents them from being able to support themselves, they may qualify for spousal maintenance regardless of how long they were married. This includes physical or mental disabilities that make it impossible for them to work. Child custody. If the spouse seeking maintenance is caring for a child with a disability, the court may also consider this when determining eligibility for spousal support. This is particularly important because the care of a disabled child can be physically and financially demanding, and it may prevent the custodial parent from being able to work. Spouse's ability to support themselves. The spouse requesting maintenance must also demonstrate that they lack the ability to support themselves through their own income or resources. This is often the most contested aspect of spousal maintenance cases. Courts will look at the spouse's earning potential, education, job skills, and work experience. If the requesting spouse has not worked for a number of years, for instance, due to caring for children or staying at home, this could impact the court's decision. To sum it up, spousal maintenance is generally reserved for those who have been married for a long time, have a disability, are caring for a child with special needs, or simply cannot support themselves. But the eligibility depends on the specific circumstances of the case. Factors courts consider when determining spousal maintenance. Now that we know the general eligibility requirements, let's move on to how courts decide whether or not to award spousal maintenance. And if they do, how much? There are several factors that Texas courts will consider when determining whether spousal support is appropriate. These factors are designed to ensure that both parties are treated fairly. Here are the main factors. The financial resources of the spouse seeking maintenance. Courts will evaluate the financial resources of the spouse that is requesting spousal support. This includes income, assets, and any other financial support they may have access to, such as from a trust or family members. The court will also consider their ability to earn a living based on their education, skills, and work experience. The paying spouse's ability to provide support. On the flip side, courts will also consider the paying spouse's financial situation. This includes their income, assets, and any other financial obligations they may already have, such as child support payments, medical bills, or other debts. The goal is to ensure that the paying spouse isn't left financially crippled by the spousal maintenance order. The length of the marriage. The longer the marriage, the more likely it is that spousal maintenance will be awarded. Texas courts generally look more favorably on long marriages when deciding whether to award spousal support. As I mentioned earlier, a marriage lasting 10 years or more is one of the key criteria for eligibility. The contribution of the spouse seeking maintenance to the marriage. This is a big one. If the spouse requesting maintenance was a stay-at-home parent or sacrificed their own career to support their spouse's career, the court may take that into consideration. For instance, if one spouse supported the family financially while the other handled the household and children, the court may be more likely to award maintenance. The age, employment skills, and earning capacity of the spouse seeking maintenance. If the requesting spouse is relatively young and has the ability to go back to school or work, the court may not award spousal support or may only do so temporarily while the spouse gets back on their feet. However, if they are older or have limited skills, this could influence the court's decision. The effort of the spouse seeking maintenance to become self-sufficient. Courts will also look at whether the spouse requesting maintenance has made a good faith effort to become self-sufficient. For instance, if they've been searching for jobs or have gone back to school, that could work in their favor. If they haven't made any effort to work or improve their financial situation, this could hurt their case for spousal support. Acts of domestic violence. In cases where one spouse has been the victim of domestic violence or has been subjected to physical or emotional abuse, the court may be more likely to award spousal maintenance to help that person get back on their feet. These are the main factors that Texas courts take into account when determining whether spousal maintenance is appropriate. As you can see, there are many considerations involved, and no two cases are exactly alike. Duration and limits of spousal maintenance. Let's now talk about how long spousal maintenance lasts and what the limits are in Texas. First, the duration of spousal maintenance depends on the length of the marriage. In Texas, the law provides specific guidelines for how long maintenance can be ordered based on how long the marriage lasted. If the marriage lasted less than 10 years, spousal maintenance is generally not available unless there are exceptional circumstances like domestic violence or a disability. If the marriage lasted 10 to 20 years, maintenance can be ordered for a period of up to 5 years. If the marriage lasted 20 to 30 years, maintenance can be ordered for a period of up to 7 years. If the marriage lasted 30 years or more, maintenance can be ordered for a period of up to 10 years. So as you can see, the longer the marriage, the longer spousal support can be ordered, but the maximum duration is typically 10 years, regardless of the marriage length. However, it's important to note that spousal maintenance may be terminated early under certain circumstances. For instance, if the recipient remarries, cohabits with someone in a romantic relationship, or if there is a substantial change in circumstances for either party, maintenance can end before the maximum duration is reached. To summarize, the duration of spousal maintenance is typically tied to the length of the marriage, and there are specific limits on how long it can last in Texas. The maximum duration is 10 years for long marriages, but it can be terminated early depending on certain factors. Common questions about spousal maintenance in Texas. Now that we've covered the eligibility for spousal support, the factors that the courts consider, and the duration of spousal maintenance, let's dive into some common questions people often have about spousal support in Texas. These questions can clarify a lot of confusion and help you understand the process better. Does spousal maintenance always get approved in a divorce? One of the biggest misconceptions about spousal maintenance is that it's automatically granted in every divorce. That's not the case. As we discussed earlier, spousal maintenance in Texas is not something that's automatically awarded. It's only granted when specific conditions are met. In most cases, the spouse requesting maintenance has to prove a need and that they cannot support themselves. They also have to demonstrate that their spouse has the ability to pay. So just because you ask for spousal maintenance doesn't mean it will be granted. It's something the court will carefully assess based on the facts of your case. Can I get spousal support if I didn't work during the marriage? This is a common concern, especially for spouses who stayed at home to care for children or support their spouse's career. If you didn't work during the marriage, you may be eligible for spousal maintenance, but you'll still have to meet the criteria I mentioned earlier, such as being married for at least 10 years or having a disability that prevents you from earning a living. The court will look at your earning potential and whether you've made efforts to become self-sufficient. For example, if you haven't worked in years and don't have the necessary skills to re-enter the workforce, the court may be inclined to award maintenance to give you time to get back on your feet. How is the amount of spousal support determined? The amount of spousal maintenance in Texas is not set in stone and varies depending on the circumstances of the case. While there is no formula like child support, the court will consider several factors to determine how much support is appropriate. These include the financial resources of the spouse requesting maintenance and whether they can meet their own needs, the paying spouse's ability to provide support without sacrificing their own financial well-being, the standard of living established during the marriage. Courts will try to maintain a similar standard of living for both spouses if possible, and the length of time needed for the requesting spouse to become self-supporting. In most cases, spousal maintenance in Texas is limited to 20% of the paying spouse's monthly gross income or $5,000 per month, whichever is less. This is the maximum that can be awarded, although the actual amount depends on the specific circumstances of the case. Can spousal maintenance be modified? Yes, spousal maintenance orders can be modified under certain circumstances. If there is a significant change in either spouse's financial situation, such as a loss of income, illness, or change in the financial needs of the recipient spouse, a court may agree to modify the amount or duration of spousal support. For example, if the spouse paying maintenance suffers a job loss or significant decrease in income, they may request a reduction in the amount of spousal maintenance. On the other hand, if the spouse receiving support faces additional financial needs, they can also petition the court to increase the support. What happens if the paying spouse stops paying? If the spouse who is ordered to pay maintenance fails to comply with the court's order, the recipient spouse can take action. The most common options include contempt of court. The recipient spouse can file a motion for contempt, asking the court to enforce the order. This could result in penalties for the non-paying spouse, including fines or even jail time. Wage garnishment. In many cases, the court can order that spousal support be deducted directly from the paying spouse's paycheck. It's important for both parties to understand that spousal maintenance is a legal obligation that can have serious consequences if not followed. How does spousal maintenance impact taxes? Another important aspect to consider is how spousal maintenance is treated for tax purposes. In the past, spousal support was tax deductible for the paying spouse, and the recipient had to report its income. However, as of January 1st, 2019, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act changed this rule. Now, spousal maintenance is not tax deductible for the paying spouse, and the recipient spouse does not have to report it as income. This change means that the tax implications of spousal maintenance are much more neutral than before, but it's still something to consider when negotiating or agreeing to support terms. It can be helpful to look at real-life examples to better understand how spousal maintenance works in Texas. Let's walk through a couple of hypothetical scenarios. Example 1. Long marriage with significant income disparity. Let's say Tom and Lisa were married for 18 years. Tom works as an executive at a tech company and makes a substantial salary, while Lisa has been a stay-at-home mom for most of their marriage, raising their 2 children. Lisa has limited work experience and no degree, and she hasn't worked outside the home for 15 years. In this scenario, Lisa may be eligible for spousal maintenance because the marriage lasted for more than 10 years and she has a demonstrated need for financial support. Given her lack of income and the disparity between Tom's income and her own, the court would likely award her some form of support, possibly up to 5 years, while she works on becoming self-sufficient. Example number 2, a short marriage with disability. Now let's look at Mark and Karen, who are married for 3 years. Mark is a successful lawyer while Karen has multiple sclerosis, which limits her ability to work full-time. Despite their short marriage, Karen may qualify for spousal maintenance due to her disability, which prevents her from being able to support herself financially. In this case, the court may decide that spousal maintenance is necessary, but the duration and amount would likely be less than in a longer marriage. Alternatives to traditional spousal maintenance. Before we wrap up, it's important to mention that spousal maintenance isn't the only option available in divorce cases. While it's a common solution, there are other ways to handle financial support depending on the situation. Some alternatives include: Number 1, a lump sum spousal support. Instead of ongoing monthly payments, the court may agree to a lump sum payment as a form of spousal support. This can be beneficial if both parties want to avoid long-term financial obligations, and it allows the paying spouse to settle the matter in one payment. Number 2, division of property. In some cases, the court may order a larger share of the community property to the spouse who is financially disadvantaged, rather than ordering spousal support. This is often done when one spouse has more assets or income, and the other has more immediate financial needs. And number 3, rehabilitative maintenance. In certain situations, the court may provide spousal support for a temporary period, allowing the recipient spouse time to gain job skills, education, or work experience to become self-supporting. This is often referred to as rehabilitative maintenance. To recap, spousal support and alimony in Texas is a complex area of law, and many factors come into play when determining eligibility, amount, and duration. It's important to understand your rights and obligations, whether you're seeking spousal support or being asked to pay it. If you're going through a divorce or considering one, I highly recommend speaking with a family law attorney who can provide advice tailored to your specific situation. It's crucial to understand the full picture and make informed decisions. If you have any questions about spousal support or anything else related to divorce law, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll do my best to respond. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos on divorce law and related topics. Thank you for watching and good luck.